I'm MrByZ, and I'm going to take a look at the Last Jedi A-Wing and Darth Vader and Probot set here today. I was able to pick those up at a leak through Fred Meyer. Apparently Fred Meyer in the Northwest area is not caring about Force Friday. So let's take a look at the A-Wing and the Probot now. I think I'm going to start with the Probot set. Obviously the Probot is what is featured here, and then we have the Vader shown through the window packaging. Obviously advertising more Force Link we see on the back. Picture of the Probot and Vader, and then the Force Link and the 2-pack of Rey and an Elite Guard. Not much more, although this actually does have information, like the figures, about what you're getting here. So let's open this up and check it out. Here we have Vader and the Probot removed from package. Let's start with looking at the Darth Vader. I am very impressed with this mold. It looks fantastic. Those of you who know me know I am a big Darth Vader fan, and I love it when we get gold molds, especially good helmet sculpts of Vader. This looks very nice. Gone is, you know, in Rogue One we had that little mold mark or whatever on the side of his helmet. That is gone. We have a little bit of red to the eyes. He looks very big. In fact, let's take a look at him compared to the Rogue One Vader. As you can see, he's just a little bit taller. It's definitely a different mold. I wasn't quite sure if everything would be changed on this. Obviously, the chest needs to be changed because it has the robe going over the shoulder armor on Rogue One, much like A New Hope. But it is definitely a different figure, so that's nice to see. The cape looks really nice. And something else I did notice on this is on his the lower portion of his inner robes. This is now, like, it comes out. It's none of this lower robe is attached to his legs. It's all a separate piece, only these are open a little bit more. I don't know if that's to give him a little bit more movement or what, but very cool figure. I'm very impressed. Let's take a look at the Probot next. So here we have the Probot. No firing head mechanism like we've had before. All of the limbs are articulated. Some even have joints in the middle. I have to find. They all swivel. Like here, we can move this up and down. Some of it has a little extra articulation in there. Kind of nice to see. Very nice detail on the head. A little bit of battle scarring, which is cool to see. We've missed that from the last few years of Star Wars figures and vehicles especially, so it's nice to see some weathering to it. Nice glossy look on the eyes. I love the stand too. It's actually like a clear stand, but it looks like an Imperial emblem too. It's a nice touch. So how does this compare to previous Probots? Well, I have the two modern Probots are done, which are both the same mold. Height-wise, he's a little bit taller, but he is on a stand. I feel like the legs on the Probot here are a little bit shorter than what we had previously. Let's find one to exact. Yeah, definitely. You can see between that leg and that leg, which are the same, that one is definitely longer than that one. So the legs are a little bit shorter. The head is definitely different. If we pull this around to look at kind of the same detail, we can see that the head's a little bit different. Now on these, it had these two big antennae up above, and obviously we just have two short ones. I don't know my Probots well enough to know what's more accurate, but just has the tiny little ones here. It does have a firing missile. It's you can see the back end of it right there. If we move this around, it's actually recessed in. It's just this right here. If we I feel like my hand is in the shadow here, creating the shadow. We fire. Just fires right out of there. So next, let's take a look at the A-Wing, which was always one of my favorite fighters. We have the window box with our figure, just a resistance pilot tally. It's actually got a name, I think. Just a resistance pilot. And a little bit of information on the back. So starting with the resistance pilot tally, one of my first notices on this is while the helmet is a part of the head mold, this is now a clear visor. It's not those stupid yellow visors that we had on Force Awakens figures when they had the helmet just attached to the head. So that's really nice to see. Obviously, this is a brand new molded figure. We haven't had an A-Wing pilot before, although there's a lot of similarities between this and an X-Wing pilot. Like, we don't see the huge differences, I would say, that we saw between like A-Wing pilots and B-Wing pilots and X-Wing pilots in Return of the Jedi. But the figure looks very nice, very good details to it. I like it. If we look at the A-Wing itself, I'm noticing not really much in the way of wear to it. I mean, you have like a little bit of stuff here, but not as dirty as what we've seen they can do with some of this stuff. It looks fairly new. Pretty solid vehicle. It does have firing laser cannons, so you can fire those on out. Has an opening cockpit. And not much detail on the inside of that cockpit. There are no stickers. There were no stickers with the ski speeder as well. No color detail, nothing in there. As Chris from Jedi Business has pointed out, there's a little slot that you can put her gun back behind the seat there. Underneath, not much. No nerf, yay! Just the landing gear and the symbol for Force Link. But how does this A-Wing compare to previous A-Wings? So clearly, it's very different from any of the A-Wing releases we've had before. If you look at Hera's Rebels A-Wing with the new Last Jedi A-Wing, you see a huge difference. Obviously, the new Last Jedi one is far bigger, and it looks different. There's a lot of different features to it. This A-Wing is a lot more like the Return of the Jedi A-Wing that we've seen before. Now, there's speculation on if the A-Wings that we're seeing in Last Jedi are as the same as the ones we saw in Return of the Jedi, and I have to say, definitely no. Because I consider the Power of the Force 2 A-Wing, it's a pretty good representation of what we saw in Return of the Jedi. Hasbro updated it once, really, with a new cockpit interior, but that was about it. The exterior was very good, and this is actually the mold from the vintage Power of the Force A-Wing. Or Droid's A-Wing, not even Power of the Force. And so it's held up. It's a really, if you look at it, it's really good, really well molded, really well made, good paint job and everything. And you could definitely see the huge difference in the paint job that Hasbro was giving us back in the 90s as opposed to what they are doing now. But it is definitely not the same version of A-Wing. This is definitely more of an updated, it's a little more sleeker. The original A-Wing, it just kind of goes back in straight lines, whereas this has the bend in it a little bit. And then behind the cockpit, whereas this has more room behind the cockpit, this does not have that. And there seems to be more space in the engines. Now if we look at the backs here, we can see even that spot between the engines is now different. There's a lot of different detail in there. And like I said, I really feel this is a good representation of the models that we saw in Return of the Jedi. And again, if you go and look at Hera's A-Wing, it's very similar to that Jedi A-Wing too. And if we flip them up over on the opposite side, of course, we get Nerf stuff for Hera's A-Wing, which not very many people cared much for. And no landing gear on that one too. We see big differences here again. So, I'm going to say, the Last Jedi A-Wing, while it says on the packaging that it dates back to the A-Wings from Return of the Jedi, or from that era, it is not the same model of A-Wing. I think that's about saying, like, a Ford Mustang dates back to 62? But it doesn't necessarily mean that today's Mustang is the same as an older Mustang. So there's definitely a different vehicle, but in the same class. One final thing, I thought I'd show how the A-Wings sit. As you can see, the new A-Wing sits a little lower, and it's a little sleeker in design. It definitely sticks up a little bit more. Kind of reminds me of a World War II fighter in some ways, just the way it is there. And then this one's pretty sleek too, the Rebels one, but that is a little bit more design-wise for the cartoon as well. So that's my look at the A-Wing and probot Darth Vader, kind of from the Last Jedi series here, that have been brought out. I've been able to pick up a little bit early. As I said before, this stuff will be available in your neck of the woods if it's not out already, at least next Friday for Force Friday. I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave any comments or anything you'd love to see me review below. And of course, subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching.